I was standing in line at the post office holding a card for my mom's birthday, thinking about how she always cried when she read the ones with flowers on the front. It was just a regular Tuesday. I had errands to run, groceries to buy, dinner to cook. Nothing about that day felt strange, not until I heard the voice behind me. "You look just like my daughter." I turned and saw an older woman, maybe late 50s. Her gray hair was clipped back neatly and she wore a maroon sweater even though it was warm out. I smiled politely. We all say things like that sometimes, right? She probably had a daughter my age. Maybe I reminded her of someone. I nodded, still holding my envelope, thinking the conversation was over. Then she said, "She was kidnapped 20 years ago." That sentence felt like a slap. I stood still for a second, unsure if I'd heard her right. The air in the room didn't change, but I did. My chest tightened as I looked at her again. Her eyes were calm, but there was something behind them, something heavy, like she had been carrying grief for too long and had learned how to balance it without showing the cracks. I let out a soft, awkward laugh. "What was her name?" I asked, half out of curiosity, half just to fill the silence. She stared at me, not just looked, stared. Her mouth didn't move, but her eyes were locked on mine like she was searching for something, like she already knew the answer, like she didn't want to say it out loud but couldn't stop herself. Finally, she spoke. "Your name." At first, I thought I misheard. I blinked. "What?" She repeated it, her voice steadier than before. Her name was Alira. And that was the moment the pen slipped out of my hand and hit the floor. I didn't pick it up right away. I couldn't. My hands felt frozen. My mind was doing that thing it does when it tries to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. How could she know my name? It's not common. I've only met one other person with it, and even then, it was spelled differently. I swallowed and forced a laugh that didn't sound like me. "I'm sorry." "What?" She didn't move. She just kept looking at me, her lips slightly parted, like she was afraid if she blinked, I'd disappear. "That's your name, isn't it?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, Alira." She nodded too, but the way she did it, it wasn't casual. It was like confirmation, like proof of something she had spent years trying to find. Then she whispered, "I knew it." The line moved. Someone behind us cleared their throat, annoyed. I bent down, picked up my pen, and stepped forward. My heart was pounding, but I didn't understand why yet. I'd heard of people losing children. I'd seen stories on the news, but nothing about those stories had ever felt connected to me, until now. This woman didn't seem confused. She didn't seem like someone grasping at a stranger because of grief. She seemed certain, and that terrified me. I handed my envelope to the clerk, paid for the postage, and walked out into the sunlight, feeling like I had just stepped off the edge of something. The kind of moment that doesn't feel big at first, the kind you only recognize as the beginning of everything else when you look back later. She followed me outside. She didn't raise her voice or cry or try to hug me. She just asked, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Part of me wanted to run. Part of me wanted to pretend none of this happened. But a bigger part, the part that had always wondered why my earliest memories were shadows and flashes and not much more, stayed. So I said yes. And that was the moment my entire life began to split in two. Before that day at the post office, my life was quiet. Not boring, not unhappy, just familiar in the kind of way that feels safe but forgettable. I lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment above a florist shop in downtown Silver Brook, Oregon. It wasn't glamorous, but it smelled like lilies every morning and the landlord never raised the rent. I had friends I saw on weekends, freelance clients who paid on time, and a mother who called me 3 times a week just to check if I'd eaten something green. I was 29. I worked from home as a graphic designer. Most days I stayed in sweatpants until noon. I drank too much coffee. I said I would take a walk and usually didn't. I loved my routines, and I loved the people who gave shape to them, especially my mom. Her name is Mara Cade. She's 62 now, but back then she had just retired from her job as a nurse. I mailed that birthday card to her every year, always with a long letter tucked inside, because she said my handwriting looked like music, and that reading my thoughts made her feel close to me. We weren't related by blood, but we never talked about that like it was a distance between us. She adopted me when I was 4. She told me the first time she saw me, I was sitting on the floor of a foster care office, clutching a stuffed raccoon with no tail. She brought me home that week. She was married to Jacob Cade, my adoptive father, until he died of a stroke when I was 12. I remember the silence in the house after he was gone. I remember how she tried to stay strong for me, even when her hands trembled while pouring orange juice. Jacob had been a quiet man, always tinkering with the radio or building shelves. He wasn't overly affectionate, but I never felt unloved. After his death, it was just me, Mom, and my younger brother, Corin. Corin was born to Mara and Jacob 2 years after they adopted me. We always joked that he was the biological miracle and I was the cosmic one. He was the loud one, the wild one. He sang in a band, played 3 instruments, dyed his hair every season. Growing up, we fought like all siblings do, but if anyone ever messed with me, Corin was the first to show up. When I had panic attacks in high school, it was Corin who sat on the floor outside my door and played guitar until I stopped crying. He lived just a few blocks away now and still showed up unannounced with leftover pizza or some new song he wanted me to hear. The 3 of us were close. We celebrated birthdays with homemade cake. We took road trips every summer, even after Jacob passed. My mom wasn't rich, but she gave us everything she could. I never questioned her love for me. I never thought I needed to. The story of my adoption was always a soft, blurry background in our lives. I knew I hadn't been born into our family. I knew my biological parents weren't in the picture. But the details were vague. Mara told me the agency gave her very little information. Just that I had been in temporary foster care and needed a permanent home. I never pushed her for more. I never asked who they were or why they didn't come back. I think part of me didn't want to know. The love I had was enough, or at least I thought it was. That day at the post office started like any other. I was mailing the card to Mom because she insisted on real mail, said emails were too cold. I had just picked out a pink envelope, and I'd written her a letter about a dream I had where she and Corin were arguing about how to cook eggs. The card had blue hydrangeas on the front. She planted those every year in front of our old house. I was smiling when I walked in. There were 5 people ahead of me in line. I didn't notice the woman behind me at first. I was thinking about what to make for dinner. I was thinking about work. I wasn't thinking about the possibility that everything I believed about my life could be cracked open by a single conversation. That's the thing about ordinary days. They don't warn you. They don't give you a moment to prepare. 1 minute, you're just another person in line, and the next, someone tells you that you might be the missing piece of their shattered world. And suddenly, you don't know which world is yours anymore. That morning, I had woken up, fed my cat, checked my email, and texted Corin a meme about alpacas. Nothing felt unusual, nothing felt wrong. But it was. I just didn't know it yet. I tried to move on. After the post office, I went to the grocery store like I planned. I picked up a bag of salad, some chicken, and the tomatoes my mom asked for. But the world didn't feel the same. The colors seemed slightly off, the air heavier. I kept thinking about her eyes, how steady they were, how sure. The way she said my name. Not just my name like it belonged to her before it belonged to me. Her name was Lita Van. She told me that outside the post office, standing by the bike rack, her hands tucked into the sleeves of her sweater. She wasn't pushy. She didn't cry. She said she had seen me from behind and something in her chest stopped. She said she almost didn't speak, afraid she was wrong. Then I turned around and she knew. She said I looked exactly like her daughter, Alara, the day she disappeared. I told her I had been adopted at 4. I didn't plan to say that. It just came out, like the truth was already crawling up my throat and wanted to be seen. Her face changed, but not with surprise. It was like confirmation, like she'd been holding her breath for 20 years and finally exhaled. I didn't give her my number. I told her I needed time. She nodded. Then she pulled a folded photo from her bag and handed it to me. It was faded and creased at the corners. A little girl in a pink dress stood next to a tricycle, smiling wide, 2 missing teeth. I held it in my hand and for a moment I felt dizzy. I had seen that dress before. My mom told me it was a thrift store find, one I used to wear almost every day when I first came to live with them. I never questioned it. Clothes come from everywhere. Stories get blended with time. But this was different. The pattern was identical. The embroidery along the hem. The white daisy stitched on the collar. I thanked Lida and walked away, but the photo stayed in my hand. I didn't put it in my bag. I didn't know what to do with it. That night, I barely slept. I sat at my desk, staring at the picture. I pulled out the old shoebox where I kept childhood things, cards, drawings, old snapshots. I found a photo of me, age 5, standing by the back fence of our house, wearing the same pink dress. My mom had labeled it in blue ink, Alira, spring. I stared at both pictures. Same dress, same age, different girl, or maybe not. The next morning, I called Corin. I told him everything. He didn't believe me at first. He laughed, then stopped when he heard the tone in my voice. "You think she's telling the truth?" he asked. "I don't know," I said, "but it doesn't feel like a lie." He came over within the hour. We sat on the floor of my apartment, both photos in front of us. Corin leaned forward, comparing them. "This could be a coincidence," he said, "but your face, the chin, the teeth, she looks like you." "I know." "You want to do a DNA test?" "I think I have to." The problem was, I didn't know where to begin. My adoption records were sealed. I called the agency. They gave me the same answer I'd heard before. No identifying details, no medical history, no original birth certificate. I asked if there was any way to open the records, and the woman on the phone said only a court order could do that. I hung up, hands shaking. I didn't want to hurt my mom. I wasn't trying to dig up secrets. But this wasn't something I could ignore. It didn't feel like someone chasing ghosts. It felt like someone who had found one. I called Lita the next day. Her number was printed on the back of the photo she'd given me. I asked if she would meet me for coffee. She said yes. We chose a small cafe halfway between our neighborhoods, one I'd never been to before. She brought more photos, family albums, newspaper clippings, a missing persons flyer from 1999 with the same picture she had given me. She told me about her daughter. Her name was Elira Noel Van. Born July 19th, 1995. Disappeared from a local park during a company picnic. Lita had turned her back for less than a minute to grab juice from the cooler. When she turned back around, Elira was gone. No screams, no signs of a struggle. Just gone. "I looked for years," she said. "I never stopped." She never remarried. She never moved away. She kept the same phone number in case someone ever called. She left her porch light on for 20 years, every single night. She showed me a photo of a bedroom with dolls still arranged on the bed. Elira's room? I felt something deep and unfamiliar crack inside me. I remembered nothing from before I was 4. Nothing clear, just colors, muffled sounds, a warm lap that may have been someone else's. We agreed to take the test. She paid for it. I told her I'd cover half, and she smiled and said, "You don't owe me anything." But I did. Even if I wasn't her daughter, I owed her the truth. We both did. And if I was, everything I believed about where I came from would no longer belong to me alone. After the coffee shop meeting, I couldn't go back to normal. I wanted to, and for a few days, I tried. I went to work. I responded to emails. I cooked dinner. But everything felt artificial. It was like walking through a version of my life that didn't quite fit anymore. The photo stayed on my desk. The DNA kit arrived in the mail 2 days later. The box sat unopened for a full 24 hours. I stared at it like it could explode. I wasn't scared of the test itself. I was scared of what it would tell me. Because once I knew, I couldn't unknow it. If it came back positive, it would mean my entire identity was built on a story that wasn't true. If it came back negative, it would mean I had stirred up all this pain for no reason. Corin came over that evening. He took one look at the test kit and said, "Do it. No matter what, you need to know." I nodded, took a breath, and opened the box. The process was simple. Swab, seal, mail. But my hands shook the entire time. After I dropped it off at the mailbox, I sat in my car for 10 minutes without starting the engine. I didn't call Mara right away. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to explain something I didn't fully understand. The waiting was brutal. Every day felt stretched thin. I found myself reading about cases like mine, scrolling through old news articles, trying to piece together timelines. I learned that the park where Lita's daughter disappeared was only an hour from the city where my adoptive father, Jacob, had once traveled for work. I remembered a toy piano I used to have when I was little. I had always thought my mom gave it to me, But when I asked her about it once, she said, "You came with it." That memory haunted me. I wondered what else I had come with. What stories had been folded neatly into my life without question. One night, I finally called Mara. I didn't mention Lida or the DNA test. I asked about my adoption, pretending it was just curiosity. Her voice changed the moment I brought it up. She wasn't angry, but she grew quiet, careful. She told me again that Jacob handled everything, that it was a private process, that they were told it was legal. No court papers, no home visits, just signatures and fees. She said she trusted him. She said she didn't ask questions because she loved me the moment I walked into their home. I asked her if she ever wondered about my life before then. She said, "Every day." But I didn't want to chase shadows. I wanted to be your mother, not your detective. I didn't push further. I could hear the ache in her voice. She wasn't lying. She had always loved me deeply and completely. But love doesn't erase the truth. I had to keep going. Lida and I stayed in touch. We met once a week while waiting for the results. Each time she brought something small from her daughter's life. A bracelet made of yellow beads, a bedtime storybook with her name written on the inside cover in crayon, a drawing of a butterfly with backward wings. Each piece felt strangely familiar, like a dream I had almost remembered. One afternoon, she told me about the day Alira disappeared. She had been wearing a blue windbreaker and white sandals. They were at a company picnic. Lida turned to refill her husband's drink, and when she looked back, Alira was gone. No one saw anything. No screams, no struggle, no suspicious people reported. Just gone in the time it takes to pour a glass of lemonade. Police searched for months. There were flyers, interviews, tip lines. Lida said she never left town because she believed Alira would come home. She said she still kept a drawer full of birthday cards she bought over the years. Every single one addressed, sealed, and never sent. I asked her how she survived that kind of grief. She said, "I didn't. I just kept breathing." That answer stayed with me. It felt honest in a way that hurt. I started to see how much she had lost, not just her daughter, but her future, her sense of reality, the simple comfort of being able to say, "She's safe." When the DNA results finally arrived, they came in a plain white envelope. I stood at my mailbox holding it like it weighed more than I could carry. I didn't open it right away. I walked up to my apartment, sat at the kitchen table, and called Corin. He answered on the second ring. "Do you have it?" "Yeah." "Want me to come over?" "Number, I need to do this alone." He didn't argue, just said, "Call me after." I took one breath, then opened the envelope. I unfolded the paper with steady hands, but everything inside me was shaking. The envelope held a single sheet. I scanned for numbers. One sentence jumped out first. Parent-child match, 99.9% probability. My chest went still. My eyes jumped to the name printed beside the result, Lida Van. I read the sentence again, slower this time, then again. There was no mistake. Lida was my biological mother. The room around me went silent. I wasn't crying. I wasn't speaking. I just sat there with the truth in my hands. For so long, I had believed my life started at age 4 with a woman who gave me love and safety and a quiet place to grow. Now I knew that wasn't the beginning. It was a continuation of someone else's story, a story that had been violently interrupted. I called Lida. She answered on the first ring. "It's a match," I said. She didn't speak right away. Then she let out a long breath and said, "I knew it." I asked her if she wanted to meet that evening. She said yes. The drive to her house was quiet. My thoughts were loud. I didn't know how to walk into the home of the woman who gave birth to me and start acting like her daughter. I didn't know if I was supposed to. All I knew was that I owed her my presence. Her house was simple, painted pale blue with a small porch light glowing over the steps. She opened the door before I knocked. She didn't try to hug me, and I was grateful. Instead, she stepped aside and said, "Come in." The house smelled like lemon and fabric softener. Every photo on the wall seemed to belong to someone I didn't recognize but was somehow part of me. We sat in the living room. She brought tea neither of us touched. "I always imagined this moment," she said. "I just never knew what it would feel like." I nodded. Me either. She told me more about my first years, how I liked to line up my toy animals in perfect rows, how I hated mashed potatoes but loved pickles, how I used to sing to the dog before bed, pieces of myself I had forgotten, pieces no one else had ever known. Then she told me what happened the day I vanished. It was July 8, 1999. She had taken me to her office picnic in Tolman Park. It was a warm afternoon. She remembered tying my shoelaces twice that morning because I kept undoing them. She remembered giving me a grape juice box and telling me not to wander too far from the playground. Then she turned around to refill a drink, and when she looked back, I was gone. They searched every inch of the park. Dozens of people, helicopters, dogs. The case made the local news, but no trace was ever found. No one saw me leave. No one reported anything unusual, just a child who disappeared in broad daylight. And then silence. She never stopped searching. Every year, she sent my photo to new missing persons databases. Every year, she went to the park on July 8th and left a small flower by the slide. She said she used to close her eyes and try to picture where I might be. Sometimes she imagined I was with a kind family. Other times, she pictured the worst. When I told her about Mara and Jacob, her eyes filled with a complex pain I didn't know how to hold. "He died when I was 12, I said. "He was the one who handled the adoption." She asked me if I thought he had taken me. I wanted to say no. I wanted to believe the man who raised me didn't steal me from my mother. But I couldn't lie. I don't know what he did, but it's starting to feel like he wasn't who I thought he was. Later that night, I drove to my mother's house, the one I grew up in, the one with the yellow curtains and the humming fridge and the worn front steps. Mara was in the kitchen, folding laundry. "I need to talk to you," I said. She saw the look on my face and sat down slowly. I told her everything. The woman at the post office, the DNA test, the results. Her eyes didn't blink for a long time. "I didn't know," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "Jacob told me it was private. He said the agency handled everything. I believed him. I never asked questions." I looked at her, the woman who held me when I had night terrors, who stayed up with me through fevers, who taught me how to drive, how to apologize, how to stand up for myself. I saw heartbreak in her face, but I didn't see guilt. "I believe you," I said. She broke down. For the first time in years, I saw her cry the way people cry when something inside them breaks open. She reached for me, and I didn't pull away. "You were mine," she said. "I know you were never mine the way I thought, but you were mine. You still are." And I said, "I know." Because love doesn't vanish when the truth shows up. It doesn't disappear when the ground shifts. It bends, it stretches, it makes room for what is real and still holds on to what mattered. That night, I sat between two truths, one born from blood, one born from love. And for the first time, I saw both as part of the same story. Mine. The weeks that followed were quiet in the way only deep change can be. Not silent, not empty, but full of a stillness that demanded reflection. I had answers now, but that didn't mean I felt whole. It meant I had to begin again, with all the pieces in full view. I spent time with Lyda. She gave me space when I needed it, but always kept the door open. We started slowly. Coffee on Sundays, walks around the lake where she used to take me as a toddler. She showed me home videos of my first steps, birthday parties I didn't remember, and a song I once sang off-key in the back seat of her car. She told me about my father, the man who never stopped believing I'd come back. He died of a heart condition 5 years after I disappeared. She said losing me was what broke him. I listened with a quiet ache I didn't try to explain. Every story she shared added another thread to a life I never lived, but had always belonged to me. I saw glimpses of myself in the girl on the tapes, but I also saw a stranger. That part was hard. I wanted to feel everything all at once. I wanted to close the gap between then and now. But healing isn't a sprint. It's a slow walk into a life you have to choose one day at a time. Back home, Mara was doing her own kind of grieving, not for a child lost, but for the truth she never knew. She felt betrayed, not by me, but by the man she had trusted. She said it made her question every decision they made together. But she never stopped loving me. She never tried to hold tighter or pull away. Instead, she said, "We'll walk through this together." and I'll be proud of you every step." Corin remained my anchor. He showed up with music, takeout, and the same terrible jokes he always told. He told me it didn't matter whose blood ran through my veins. "You're my sister," he said. "That's the only fact I care about." We started family dinners with both mothers. The first one was awkward. The second was easier. By the third, Mara and Lita were passing dishes to each other like they'd always shared a table. There was something beautiful about watching two women who had every reason to be strangers decide to be something else instead. Neither of them tried to claim me. They didn't argue about who was more real. They simply made room for each other. And for me. I went to therapy. I unpacked my anger, confusion, and guilt. I had to learn that none of this was my fault, that being loved by the wrong person didn't make me complicit, that being raised with care didn't cancel out the truth of how I got there. I had to hold both grief and gratitude at the same time. Eventually, I went to the police. I handed over everything I had, the photos, the timelines, the test results. An investigation into Jacob's past was opened. He was gone, but that didn't mean the story had to stay buried. They found inconsistencies in his travel logs, links to adoption brokers with bad reputations, and the name of a man in Arizona who was charged years ago in a similar case. I don't know if there will ever be justice, but I know there's truth now, and that's a beginning. 1 year after I met Lida, I stood in Tolman Park with her. It was July 8th. She brought a single white daisy, the same kind she had left there every year since I vanished. This time, she handed it to me. "You should be the one to place it," she said. I walked to the base of the slide and knelt down. I placed the flower gently in the grass, not as a symbol of what was lost, but of what had been returned, not just to her, but to me, my name, my history, my mother, my story. I still live in the same apartment above the flower shop. My life looks the same from the outside, but inside I feel different, more honest, more complete. I know where I came from, and I know who raised me. I know what was taken and what was given, and I'm learning to live with all of it. People ask me how I feel now. I tell them I'm still processing. I'm still learning how to hold two truths at once, that the woman who gave me life and the woman who raised me are both my mother. That love and loss can live in the same room, that a quiet Tuesday at the post office can open the door to everything you thought you knew. And I tell them this: my name is Elira. I was lost, I was found, and now I am home. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the power of identity, family, and truth, please take a moment to like this video. Share it with someone who believes that even in the most ordinary moments, life can shift in extraordinary ways. If you've ever questioned your past or found strength in uncovering it, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Your story matters too. And if you want more real, personal stories that uncover hidden truths and explore what it means to be human, subscribe to the channel. There's so much more to come. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And wherever you are in your journey, may you always find your way home.